Hey everybody, this is Terrence, the Rock Sponge, host of the Terrence and Mark Experience podcast on Podbean. Join the page below on Facebook. Also the host of Pink Floyd Central on one of my channels, and also TJR's favorite rock albums on TJR's rock channel, TJR Rock Sponge channel. And now I have a fourth channel, or fifth channel I should say, no, fourth. Channel number 4 I have, and this is now exclusively to my other favorite band, Canada's preeminent power trio, and this is the first episode on this Canadian power trio, and I'm going to review their first album on this inaugural episode, and of course I'm talking about Rush. Rush's self-titled debut was released in July 1974 once the band got signed to Mercury Records here in the States, and was actually released in late 1973 on Moon Records in Canada. And since no Canadian record company wanted to touch these guys with a 39.5-foot pole, the band were indie before indie was cool. And a lot of people call them a Canadian Led Zeppelin knockoff. Well, Rush were formed by Alex Zivojinovic, who we all know better as guitarist Alex Lifeson, bass player singer Gary Lee Weinrib, which we all know as Geddy Lee, and on the drums was original drummer John Rutsey, that dude where my finger is. And, they went through a very few different names of bands. From this 1988 interview with Redbeard on In the Studio for the Making of Moving Pictures, Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee talk about their humble beginnings in the Toronto suburbs. Guys, explain to these simple-minded people how you guys formed this mighty band.
I think we're very typically suburban. What you'd call weekend warriors kind of thing. We were growing our hair, and by virtue of the fact that we were growing our hair long, we became sort of in that club of rebels, I guess, is the best way to describe it. I think we longed to break out of the boring surrounding of the suburbs and the endless similarities and the houses after houses after houses that were the same, no trees, and you know what I'm saying, and the shopping plazas and all that stuff. And our way, I guess, of trying to be different and not wanting to conform was by growing our hair long, and this music that we were into sort of spoke to us in a way that was a vehicle for us to speak out against whatever you speak out against when you're a teenager. I mean, that's part of teenage life is going through all these hormonal and psychological changes that you don't even know what you're doing half the time. I would describe us as, the kind of kids that, we were growing our hair, we were playing in a band, we thought we were kind of hip, I guess we thought we were kind of cooler than the next guy, but we probably weren't.
We started the band, it was called The Projection at first, for about a year, and we were just a basement band. We played parties, we never played for money or anything. And we were horrible, but we knew about a dozen songs, and we knew how to play them really badly, and we just kept repeating them over the course of the night until everybody would leave. But you got to start somewhere, and you may as well start in your own basement, so you don't have to walk home from there.
Well, there you have it, a bit from Monsieurs Lee and Lifeson on how Rush were formed in their early days, especially that first few shows where they were called The Projection. Well, in late 73, they got themselves a manager, Ray Daniels, who is still their manager 40 some odd years later, and put this album out on their own record label, Moon Records. And apparently a DJ in Chicago named Donna Halper of WMMS got a copy of this album, and her Cleveland, Ohio radio station was playing it to the point where Cliff Bernstein, who is now part of Q Prime Management, who at the time was an A&R guy at Mercury Records, heard this Rush album, and he goes, "I gotta sign this band." And signed he did, and they delivered a debut album, which is one of my favorite debut albums in all of rock history. Extremely underrated and somewhat overlooked, because this is not the Rush that everyone would know to love. This is more hard rock metal, but I love hard rock and metal. And this album, I was familiar with Working Man thanks to rock radio playing it like it was going out of style. You still hear it on classic rock radio today, but I did not hear an iota from the rest of the album. That was until I got the cassette in, if I'm not mistaken, August of 1990. This was the penultimate studio album I acquired initially of the 70s, because I had the third to last, because I did not have at that stage. It wouldn't be another 2 days until I had Caress of Steel, and then another few weeks Hemispheres. But I got this at Strawberries Records and Tapes, which was in a couple towns over, and I was living in Hanson at the time, but I went to Brockton to pick this up, and the cassette track listing was different than what you see on the album. So I'm going to do the vinyl version of the album. Actually, I'll tell you the track listing of the cassette. Side 1 went Finding My Way, What You're Doing, In the Mood, Working Man. And that was what I was used to until I got the Archives compilation in April of 91. And then side 2 went Before and After, Need Some Love, Take a Friend, and Here Again. But, I liked it, but the track listing just didn't flow well. That was until I got the Archives compilation at the end of April of 1991 on the final Saturday of that month. If I'm not mistaken, April 27th, 1991, I first got this, and Fly By Night and Caress of Steel with their corrected track listings on the Rush Archives collection, which is highly recommended and now out of print. It's only, you now just take the first 3 albums and create your own archive. But this album it's just a phenomenal debut album. And all the songs bar one were written by Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson. And we begin proceedings with the rocker Finding My Way, storming out of the gate with an Alex Lifeson guitar riff. It's like you're in the pits of hell. They hadn't played the song in live in years. I mean, they did play this as an instrumental on the R30 tour, which was great to see in 2004, because I saw the performance of theirs in New England at what used to be known as Tweeter Center. Prior to that, it was called Great Woods, and it was Tweeter Center. Then it was called Comcast Center. Now it's called the Xfinity Center. It was on the R30 tour. They opened with an overture that included a snippet of Finding My Way. This song just kicks ass. In fact, it was done instrumental with Geddy Lee singing the "Yeah, well, yeah" a lot lower than he did back in '74, because he was in his 50s now, so he couldn't hit the notes that his 20-some-odd-year-old counterpart could. And a lot of people call Geddy Lee Mickey Mouse on helium, a Canadian Robert Plant on acid. My God, the critics were harsh on Rush. Then again, they loved fucking Engelbert Humperdinck and fucking Gordon Lightfoot, who was at the peak of his career back in '74. But Finding My Way, killer opening track, heavy. You can hear the Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath influence on this track. Killer song. John Rutsey, one of the founding members of Rush, who sadly was not inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the band, delivering the goods on the drums in this track. My God, did he kick ass. It's a damn shame that he fell out with the guys over musical differences, and some say he was fired, others said he quit on his own accord. We won't ever know what happened to John Rutsey, because he's sadly no longer with us. But he was crucial to the band's formation in this song, killer opener to a killer debut. Next, we continue with the rockin' with the punkish 2-minute, 16-second track Need Some Love, which preceded punk by 2 or 3 years before the Ramones' debut, where they were doing songs at 2 minutes. Rush did a fast-paced rocker in 2 minutes with a fast verse, the slowish chorus, and then the da 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 da. I need some love. And Giddy wrote these lyrics. John Rutsey pounding that drum kit, and Alex Lifeson just shredding guitar solos as if he were a cross between Jimmy Page and Tony Iommi on this track. Killer song. Rush did it live only on their 1974 tour in support of this album with John Rutsey's successor. I will talk about him in the next episode. This song was only played live in 1974, but I fucking dig it. Next is a melodic rocker, continuing the heavy rocking with Take a Friend, which begins with some fast, heavy pacing things, and then to the sort of the Zeppelin-esque kind of groove, Take a Friend, great song about life being boring without friends, and you need friends. You know, some friends will come and go like fashions, but others will stick with you. And if they stick with you for more than 5 years, and they go on for like 10 years, 15 years, they're lifelong friends. I mean, and pretty much best friends, all, you know, lock, stock, and barrel. The song rules. I dig it. A lot of people may not dig it, but I fucking dig it anyway. Love this track. Next song is the side one closing epic, Here Again. And this is just a slow blues, as bluesy as Rush got. Excuse me. And this song just sort of their sense of Been Loving You on this album. And Geddy Lee, you know, rocking out on the bass guitar of his and doing the Robert Plant type of singing, but done kicking assly, I might add. Alex Lifeson unleashing guitar solos as if he was, of course, he was listening to a lot of Jimmy Page on this album at the time of this album's conception. And John Rutsey keeping the pocket, keeping the groove in, and just, and this was the first long song they would do, or long-ish song over the 5-minute hump. The first song that was exceeding the 6-minute hump, and it would not be their last either, because all subsequent albums would have songs over 6+ minutes. And this song clocks in at 7.5 minutes, the longest song in the album. I dig it. Great song. I love it. You flip the album to side 2, and we begin with What You're Doing, a sort of heavy Zeppelin-esque type of rocker, which, like Here Again, they played on the In Need Some Love and Finding My Way. They played on the initial 1974 tour. The song survived in the setlist until the 2112 tour of 1976, and a live version does appear on a live album that I previously reviewed on TJR's Favorite Rock Albums, which I will re-upload as the 4th episode of Clockwork Reviews, which is my Rush review show. I decided to name it after my second favorite. Oops, I know, spoiler. Second favorite Rush album. But What You're Doing, killer track. Awesome studio version, awesome live. In fact, they played this on their recent R40 tour, which I kicked myself in the ass for not seeing due to financial considerations and scheduling conflicts, amongst other things. But my God, does What You're Doing fucking kick ass. What You're Doing, great as the final encore or penultimate encore. Whatever, the song is just, and on top of that features their Zeppelin-esque influences, big time on this track, and the song just rules. Next is the band's 3.5-minute ditty, In the Mood, which was the only song in the album written by Geddy Lee by his lonesome. This is the only song in the album where Geddy Lee wrote it all on his own, music and lyrics. And this song survived Rush's set list for many years, up through, I believe, the Presto tour. It was always played as the final encore during their big medleys at the end of the show. from Farewell to Kings forward, the Drive Till You Die tour, aka Farewell to Kings tour, all the way up through 1980, up through 1990's Presto tour. I'm not so sure if they did it on the 91 Roll the Bones tour, because I know they didn't do it for Roll the Bones, nor Counterparts, Test for Echo, Vapor Trails, etc., etc., etc. But I love In the Mood. And they only performed the full song on the 74 tour, because they would always remove the second verse. I mean, the second verse, hey now baby, don't you talk so fast, you all know that part. I think the song is killer, catchy. You know, Rush would inadvertently plagiarize himself with this riff for a song on another album, which would come in the next year plus. But In the Mood, killer track, I dig it, awesome song. Next song is the perfect example of what the British call light and shade. We begin with called Before and After, which begins with a song in, thinking it's going to be a song in the key of E, sort of slow dirge, ding, gling, 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 going on for a minute and a half or two in the slow sort of dirge. Then all of a sudden, thinking it's going to be that way, it comes right to the key of A, which is one of the rock and roll chords, A. And just hitting the A chord, and all of a sudden it speeds up from bum 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 to and Geddy Lee, of course, doing more Robert Plant interpretations, done well on might add. Alex's guitar riff just kicking ass in the chorus was very memorable and hooky. Yeah, 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 yeah. Love this song. I mean, the song is as I look at this CD here, the third longest track in the album at 5.5 minutes. At 5 minutes 33 seconds to be precise. The song rules. I enjoy it very much. I dig it. And I don't think the song was ever played live, because I do know that most of this album was played live except for Before and After and Take a Friend. Those are the only two songs from this album that were not touched. And then we end the album with the song that's sort of become an encore on many Rush tours to the present day. Working Man. The Ode to the Working Man. Called Working Man. The song clocks in at 7 minutes, and the song is just, one of the definitive Rush songs. In fact, the song has appeared on many Rush compilations, including Chronicles, Rush Gold. What else? Chronicles, Rush Gold. Chronicles, Rush Gold, Spirit of Radio Greatest Hits, and the songs appeared on quite a few of their live albums, either as a medley or as a standalone. This song has always been played live. In fact, was played on the tour to support this album, the next tour, every tour up through 1981, either in full or part or half of the song, or which would segue into like Finding My Way, and then back to Working Man into drum solo, or part of a medley, Finding My Way, Cygnus X1, Book 2, Hemispheres Part 4, Armageddon, on the Moving Pictures tour. I don't know if they did on the Signals tour. No, the Signals tour they didn't play it. They didn't play on the Grace Under Pressure tour either. Nor the Power Windows tour, nor the Hold Your Fire tour, nor the Presto tour, nor the Roll the Bones tour, nor the Counterparts tour, nor the Test for Echo tour. They would not play it again until 2002's Vapor Trails tour, which I saw them again at the same venue I would see R 32 years later. And it was the final encore, and they played the song pretty much in full, except for the freak out ending where Alex Lifeson's guitar goes ape shit. going at lightning speed. And then when I saw them in 2004, they did the final verse in a reggae fashion before ending with the big ending before the encore break. And then on the Time Machine tour, they began with the reggae verse and then ended with the regular arrangement, going into the regular arrangement. And then on the the current R40 tour, as a firework goes off, they did the version pretty much just like the original, but kicking ass nevertheless. This first Rush album was not a hit upon its release. It stalled in the lower reaches of the Billboard Top 200. The chart placing is right below. And it took years for this album to go gold. But time has been the ultimate test to this testament of this album. And the copy of this album I'm holding is from the Sector 1 box set, which packages their first 5 albums in miniature vinyl LP sleeves. So you get the vinyl record packaging, which is cool. And I put the CDs so they wouldn't get destroyed in paper sleeves, because the plastic sleeves would have scratched them even worse. So this little trick, doohickey, works just like a charm. Just be very gentle. And the remastering done by Andy Vendette on this is phenomenal. I know I gotta get the rediscovered LP, which Rome wasn't built in a day, but I'll grab it sooner or later. And this album just fucking rules. Not much more to say about this Rush debut, but it's highly recommended. And if you don't own it, buy it now, or I'll raise some holy hell. Thank you very much. So on that note, that wraps up the first episode of Clockwork Reviews, a Rush review show hosted by the rock sponge Terrence Reardon. In the next episode, we say sayonara to John Rutsey and hello to Neil Peart as we review a Fly-By-Night. No. An album called Fly-By-Night on the next episode. So until then, this is Terrence saying sayonara, God bless, good night.